welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark, it's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Hello and welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I am live here in Charlotte for the ACC tournament. We have Jeff Goodman, who is live down there in Nashville. He's not quite at the SEC tournament right now, but he's near the SEC tournament. He was at the SEC tournament all day. And we have Mike LaTulip, who spent the afternoon at the Big Ten tournament. And lucky enough, since it's Indianapolis and he lives in Indianapolis, he had a home game. He's in his own house. He's in his own studio. We'll be joined later by John Fanta in the Big East. We'll be joined after that by CJ Moore from the Big 12 tournament, assuming that this Kansas game has finally gone final. But for now, we have some stuff to talk about in the ACC and the SEC tournaments, guys, because I do believe that we had the most bubble action. There's going to be some big boy matchups tomorrow all across the country. But today was about the bubble. Today was about the teams that are fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. And the biggest storyline of the day was Arkansas. Arkansas tried as hard as they could, Jeff. They tried as hard as they could to give away a win and lose to South Carolina. But no, DJ Wagner was not going to let that happen. He had a big three in the second half. Nelly Davis had a couple of big buckets down the stretch, and the Razorbacks found a way to avoid a catastrophic loss for the second time in the span of a week and a half to South Carolina. Arkansas now, according to our bracketologists, are probably safely in. Jeff, what do you make of what you saw with Arkansas today?
Man, they were great for about 25 minutes. I mean, they looked like a team, a well-oiled machine. They were having fun. Brazil was all over the place. Nelly Davis looked like himself at the end of the game. Cal drew up a great play for Nelly. You know, they blew a 20-point lead, though, and they've been blowing leads lately, the last few games. So John Calipari clearly concerned about that, the inability to put teams away. Especially a team like South Carolina in a revenge game. Remember, 11 days ago, South Carolina mollywopped them in Columbia. So this was a revenge game. It looked like they were going to return the favor today. And lo and behold, we find ourselves in a close game at the end. And one of the craziest things that maybe I've ever seen in covering this sport happened at the end of this game, Rob. And Arkansas was up 2 with 2.5 seconds left, and Nelly Davis going to the line. He makes the first. Up 3, 2.5 seconds left. He's got one shot left. What does he do? He tries to intentionally miss it. He bangs it pretty much as hard as he can off the backboard, and it goes in. It goes in. And after the game, John Calipari had this to say about the crazy play in which all he needed to do was make a free throw and the game is over. Instead, did Cal tell Nelly Davis to miss that shot? Listen to John Calipari's comments because they are borderline insane.
You're up 3 and there's 2 seconds to go. Miss it. By the time they get it, there's a second. Now, the other side of that is what if they throw one deep and bank it in? But I've done it before, so I do some unconventional stuff. And he banked it in, and I was like happy. I told him, good, I'm glad you banked it in. But he listened to me. He tried to miss it. He shot it flat and banked it in.
That's insane. That's look, there's a line of thinking when you're up by 1 and you have one more free throw to shoot and there's like less than 2 seconds left on the clock. you miss it because whether or not you miss it or make it, a three-pointer is going to beat you, right? And if you could draw up a player, take it out of bounds, you're more likely to get a better shot when you're only up by 2. But when you're up by 3, you get LaTulip. You get to 4 points. What are we doing? There's no logic that makes sense.
I feel like someone's covering for somebody here. It feels like Cal's been doing this a long time. I mean, this isn't his first rodeo, and the math doesn't check out. And I saw some people speculating that, Nelly Davis kind of like went rogue and decided to try to miss it himself. You're telling me a 90% free throw shooter was like, you know what? I'm gonna have this one carry him off the rim. I don't. Something is
You're not buying it. You're not buying it.
Here. I'm not buying it. And honestly, like I don't really buy what Cal said either, because if I'm him, even just saying that out loud would just feel crazy. So I could sit here and try to analyze this and break it down. I don't have an explanation for it, because when you're up 3 and you have a chance to make it 4 with an 88% free throw shooter, you do that 100 times out of 100. And I'm not sure why the attempt was to not do that tonight.
And Cal
Jeff,
looked
I have a
shocked,
question.
Guys, wait, hold on, Rob. Cal did look shocked when Nelly missed the shot. When Nelly made the shot, okay, but like tried to miss it. So I couldn't tell whether Cal was surprised because Nelly made it, ended up going in, or he was surprised that Nelly tried to miss it. Like I couldn't tell. But can I read you a couple of the comments that I got from head coaches around college basketball about this? Because I got flooded with comments. And one of which was unbelievable. He said, a junior high school coach wouldn't do that. I'm literally flabbergasted. That was one. And I had a bunch in here basically just saying, like, what the hell was he doing? It was just, honestly, I've never seen anything like it, ever. And again, they're lucky here. They're lucky because if they blow this game, let's say Nelly misses that and it caroms off the rim hard, you've got momentum going the other way. South Carolina grabs the ball, and they might be able to get a shot from half court that, who knows, might end up, tying the game. And this is a big one for Arkansas, though.
Okay, we need to look. We need to end. I don't care about this friggin' free throw. Okay,
it's crazy
we
though.
Just spent 6 minutes.
I know.
I don't care about it. Listen.
I get it.
You know what matters. Here's what matters. What matters is that Trevon Brazile made the plays down the stretch that they needed for them to be able to win. He had a huge block. He had 2 consecutive possessions where he was able to save the ball out of bounds. And the bottom line is this: like, Arkansas went from being a team that was basically out of the tournament and out of contention. They were 0-5 in the SEC, and now they are very likely going to be dancing. And if they beat Ole Miss, they got a real chance to avoid a playing game. And I know that you're loath to give him credit, Goodman, but I will say, Mike, that
that's actually not true at all. I'll give him credit for the turnaround. I'll give him credit because what Cal does, the best thing about John Calipari is his ability to, number one, get guys with big egos to play together. Okay, he's done that for years. Number 2, it's to push the right buttons, right? But what I'll say is, again, and I'll go to my grave with this one, like, he underachieved for 3/4 of the season. He did. You could say what you want. They should never be in this position in the first place. It's the same thing with the Indiana Hoosiers. Those 2 guys had $5+ million. Arkansas probably had $7 or $8 million if you really got them to admit what they got. And man, their 7 guys are talented, Rob. Too talented to be fighting with South Carolina on a neutral court in a game that they had to have at the end just to be able to kind of punch their ticket. Because if they don't win today, maybe they're going to Dayton. Maybe they're not going to the tournament at all.
But did they win today?
They did. Good win. Okay. No, it wasn't that good win.
Yeah, it was a good one. So the other bubble winners that we had today: Texas beat Vanderbilt, North Carolina beat Notre Dame. That was not even really a game. And here's the biggest one for you, Mike. I think the single biggest bubble winner of the day was Xavier. And do you know why Xavier was the biggest bubble winner of the day? because UConn went from 32 in the net to 30 in the net, which means that Xavier now has 2 quad 1 wins. So for all those people that were like, how can you put Xavier in over North Carolina when they both have 1 quad 1 win? You can't say that anymore. Kind of shows the ridiculousness of relying on this arbitrary cutoff quad system, doesn't it, Mike?
It does, and that could also change after tomorrow night. So like they could go right back down and go back to a quad 2. So no, I agree. I mean, you look at some of the other. I mean, obviously Ohio State going down tonight is big for Xavier. It's big for Oklahoma as well. So yeah, I mean, again, the net system. I actually don't mind the net, but this is just how it works, and I actually kind of like the way it works. That it's not just like, well, this result happened in December, we're good until March. It's no, this is an ever evolving thing. And even with UConn moving up to a quad 1 for Xavier, you got to hope if you're Xavier that they keep winning and push their way into that, further into that top 30. And because Xavier, I think to not sweat, they got to win tomorrow. Like they got to beat Marquette, and they can beat Marquette. Yeah, they got it. I mean, again, you don't want to leave it into the committee's hands at this stage. Like you want to feel like you've done your work. And to this point, they really have. I think they've won 12 of 15. They've won 8 in a row. They've taken care of business. So, man, it's a big one tomorrow for them.
Yeah, they got to get that win. Goodman, you saw a couple of, other than Arkansas, you had a couple of big bubble results in the SEC. Well, I'll get to North Carolina here in a second, but I want to pick your brain on Texas and Oklahoma first, because I think Texas is in the same conversation when it comes to Ohio State, right? Where if Texas loses to Texas A&M, they have the same record as Ohio State. They both have 15 losses. They both kind of have bad resume metrics. Their predictive metrics are okay, and they're going to be sitting there at 9-14 against quad 1 and quad 2 opponents. And I listened to our bracket show this afternoon, and Rocco Miller made a point where he said Ohio State's not going to get in with 15 losses and a 9-15 record against quad 1 and quad 2. That's exactly what Texas is going to be dealing with here. He said they need 3 wins to be back in action. They got 1 today. Do you think they've done enough? How far are they? And is Oklahoma now a team that is going to be in the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, Texas has to win 2 more, I think, because, again, there's so many other moving parts going on around the country. We don't know what's going to happen in the Mountain West. We don't know what's going to happen in the AAC, whether Memphis wins that and gets the auto bid, or there's a bid steal, or ACC. There's just a lot that we can't say with any conviction, but I think Texas needs 2 just to get on the right side of the bubble at that point, and not knowing what else is going to happen. So they got to beat A&M. They got to beat Tennessee. The odds of that, slim to none. Let's be honest, slim to none. Unless Trey Johnson goes for 40, I'm not sure they win either of these next 2 games. And he's terrific. They just don't have enough around him. Vandy isn't that good. I've said this all year. I think they've played over their head, which is why I chose Mark Byington as my coach of the year a couple of weeks ago. They've fallen off since, but he's still done a great job with that collection of talent. But Texas, you look at it, 20. What do they really have? 18-14, 6-12. Awful non-league schedule. Awful. And that's going to
hold on. I got it right here. Yeah, I got it right here in front of me. They're 6-10 against quad 1. Their big wins are Kentucky at Mississippi State, Texas A&M at home, Mizzou at home, at Oklahoma, Vandy on the neutral. So they have some pretty good quality wins.
Everybody does in the SEC.
Everybody
does. They lost to South Carolina. What they lose? Home to Georgia. They've lost some games. And again, I think ultimately, even if they're close, Rob, their lack of scheduling in the non-conference for a program like Texas will cost them.
Yep. All right, Mike, I want to ask you about Ohio State because I think that they're in that same conversation. By the way, for me, Oklahoma is effectively in at this point.
Yeah.
They were one. I think they were in with 3 spots to spare. They were one of our last 4 in, but one of the first of the last 4 in, if that makes sense. And then they just picked up a win over a 9 seed in Georgia. So I do think that they have a little bit of room to play with here. Mike, Ohio State is 17-15. Their net is 37. They have good predictive metrics. Their resume metrics are okay. They average out to like 42 or 43. They beat Maryland. They beat Kentucky on a neutral. They won at Purdue. They don't have anything worse than a quad 2 loss, but they're 9-15 against quad 1 and 2 opponents and 17-15 overall. I personally speaking, I cannot advocate for a team that is 2 games over 500 to be able to be in the NCAA tournament when there are teams elsewhere like a VCU, programs at that level that are not going to get in when they're putting up 26, 27, 28 win seasons.
Give me UC San Diego.
Exactly.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever asked you that, Mike. Where do you stand on that?
On Ohio State or on UC San Diego?
all of the above. Let's start with Ohio State.
So, yeah, Ohio State, look, they do. Like, their 3 big wins are better wins than resume wins than I think a lot of Big Ten teams could say at this point. But there's something to be said. If you lose 7 of 11 heading into Selection Sunday, I mean, it's going to be really hard to overcome that. Like today, being there up close, you can feel it. I think, and I lived it. 2 of my years at Illinois, we were squarely on the bubble. We won 19 games and we just hovered around that bubble. It's a miserable place. It's an absolutely miserable place because everything is magnified. And it's like almost counterintuitive where the teams that push their way off the bubble in the right direction are actually the teams that, you know, can find a way to play loose and play free of mind. And watching that up close today with Ohio State, like there was just a lot of weight in every turnover and every missed shot. And that affected the defensive end where Iowa just, you know, spread them out and got anything they wanted. It's real. And you can see like the teams, like you learn a lot about these programs and these teams when they're on the bubble. I look at just the way Indiana's banded together, the way Xavier's banded together. Like there's a stark contrast, the teams that are ascending to the right side of the bubble to the teams that are falling the other way. And like, I just, throughout this whole entire year, like what was Ohio State's identity the whole year?
They never,
I mean,
had
it's just,
one.
they didn't. And it's just, it's hard. Like, so in these moments where it's like pressure situations and you need something to latch onto, you don't have anything to fall back on other than, can Bruce Thornton get downhill and get to that, you know, 8 to 10 foot spot, hit that fadeaway, hit a tough shot, hit a 3. It's just, it's hard to do that.
Stink. And their big stink.
The front court,
I mean,
the front court was, and it's been a revolving door there with their front court. Bradshaw was in, he was out, now he's back in. He's not been effective. You know, Sean Stewart, you know, talking to some people at the game, it's like, well, we had high hopes for Sean Stewart. Sean Stewart's a role guy. Right. He's a role guy. And he's like, there aren't a ton of ball skills there. And that's nothing against Sean Stewart. There's a way to, I think, use Sean Stewart in a way that, you know, accentuates Sean Stewart's athleticism and ability, but it's just kind of hard with the pieces around them. And so, you know, at times this team kind of looked disconnected tonight, especially late. And look, like Jake Diebler, it's a really tough spot to be in. Jeff, you and I talked about this preseason. Like, it's just like, how set up for success was he really, like, taking over as a head coach at this program this early in his career, just with how things went down last year? Was it kind of lightning in a bottle? Was it not? I know he's well respected. I know the players like him, the former players like him. I know like a few coaches on that staff. Jamal Walker coached me at Illinois. He's a hell of a coach. Taylor Battle is a hell of a coach. It's just, for whatever reason, the group just didn't seem to connect this year. And that's kind of been the theme over the last few years with Ohio State. So they find themselves in a familiar place, which we just, at least when I was at Illinois, like I wasn't used to that with Ohio State. So we'll see what happens here to finish out the, you know, going into Selection Sunday, and even postseason play. I mean, that's another whole question, whole separate topic with the crown and all that. Like, how many teams are still intact by the time that rolls around?
That's the big question, man. The portal is going to eviscerate some of these programs. We're playing 3-on-4 in the college basketball crown. The walk-ons are going to get a lot of minutes. And I will say,
was that Bama? Yeah. Who was that? Who a couple years ago? Who went 3-on-5?
It was Alabama. Alabama against Minnesota. Colin Sexton had 40. I was courtside in the game. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. By the way, Mike, I just want to say, you talked about your time at Illinois. You look like you could be back in your time at Illinois, that you shaved the beard, clean shaven. Mike LaTulip here.
What beard? What beard?
Yeah,
I can't.
He's got 11 years younger. Before we bring CJ Moore in here, I do want to hit on North Carolina real quick, because they did pick up a win over Notre Dame, which matters because they didn't lose to Notre Dame, right? But let's forget what happened in the game against Duke the other day when I thought North Carolina actually played the best they probably could play against a Duke team. They've won 7 of their last 8. Van Allen Lubin is averaging 14 and 7 in that span. Jalen Withers is averaging 14 and 7 in that span. Jalen Withers, who set an ACC tournament record for North Carolina, hit 7 threes tonight. He's shooting 55% from 3 in the last 8 games. And it feels like this team, which ranks 13th in Torvik since February 11th, it feels like they've kind of figured some things out. They get Wake Forest tomorrow. I was able to catch up with Van Allen Lubin after their win today. I asked him what happened and how they get this thing going and how they continue to stay hot. Keep going. I'm going to keep going. We got Van Allen Lubin coming up in a minute. I will say this, guys. I think that North Carolina has put themselves in a position where they got to win 2 more games, but if they win 2 more games, they are dancing. I think that's what's the way that this is going to play out. They can beat Wake Forest because I think Wake Forest has kind of been people figured out they don't really have a great point guard situation.
Of course, they can beat Wake.
Really
can they beat Duke?
That's the big question. Rob? Can they beat Duke? I'll answer that question after we hear from Van Allen Lubin.
Yeah, I think just the shots that we made early on and just our, defensive intensity, it really got us going, really sparked some energy for us to just get us rolling, just to get us a lead. We're obviously proud of just the way, Willis shot the ball today and just knowing that, he can continue to make a very great impact for us on the team and just for this whole tournament, and so we're just really, really, really happy for today.
He set a record for threes. I'm sure you've been told that already. But he's now 21 for 38 the last 8 games. That's 55% from 3. When he's making shots like that, when they're going in, what does that change for you guys offensively?
It really just gives us an offensive rhythm, just knowing that we can just score on all 3 levels, that we can really space the floor and give, our opponent a really hard time and just figure out ways how they can defend us.
You had 17 and 10, I believe, tonight, right?
Yeah, correct.
You're now averaging 13 and 7 over the course of the last 8 games, coincides with winning 7 of your last 8 games. You're playing better. North Carolina's known for big men that produce like that. How did you guys get this going?
It's really just, my teammates just finding me. The way that we share the ball, we really, we find each other to generate good shots. I think for me, just trying to be aggressive to assert myself and also give credit to my teammates, to be able to trust me and find me on the offensive side.
Obviously, tomorrow's a big one. In-state rivalry, Wake Forest. But there's tournament implications here, right? How are you going to prepare for this game? What's your mindset heading into it?
Yeah, we're just taking it one game at a time. We know we got them tomorrow, so we're just trying to prep, our mind and our body just to go out there and compete tomorrow. I think it's just really important for us just trying to get a win and just continue to keep it rolling.
All right, guys, you each have 30 seconds to answer this question. Mike, I'm going to you first, then Goodman, then I'll answer it as well. If North Carolina can beat Wake Forest, is there a road to them finding a way to win against this Duke team?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I mean, I think RJ's got to go off. And really, I think Ian Jackson's the one. I think he's the one who takes some of the pressure off. And if both of those guards are on, they can play with Duke and be in the game. They were in it last game for a little while. I just think Duke's got way too much, and they're like robots right now. Like, they are absolutely motivated here to win an ACC regular season title, an ACC tournament title, and the national title. And again, they're not going to look past anybody, especially their rivals.
Mike?
Yeah, I look at the other side of the bracket, and if you're North Carolina, wouldn't you want to be down there?
Sure.
I just feel like a lot of I look at with Louisville and Clemson, and both those teams are really good and played well throughout ACC play, but I just think it's a lot to ask for this team. And I think North Carolina's played the last 3-4 weeks. They've played like an NCAA tournament team. It's just it's a lot to ask. Where it's like, hey, 2 of our last 4 games are played against arguably the best team in the country. That's a lot for anybody to overcome.
Yeah, the only way it happens is if Cooper Flag gets food poisoning and Conca gets food poisoning. I think that's the only way. So if you're listening
Probably
to this
Shire,
and you're a North
Shire
Carolina
too.
fan, figure out what hotel they're staying at, spike the lasagna that they're eating. Listen, we're going to let Mike go. When we come back, we're going to be joined live by the athletic CJ Moore from the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, breaking down what happened with West Virginia, what happened with Baylor, and an overtime game between Kansas and UCF. That's coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light. Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. Rob Dauster, Jeff Goodman, and that gentleman you see is not Mike LaTulip. It is the wonderful CJ Moore, who is joining us from the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. And CJ, you got a chance to see up close and personal Kansas get taken to overtime by a team they beat by 51 points earlier this season. What happened with the Jayhawks? What happened in that matchup? And how does this thing kind of play out for them moving forward?
Well, defensively, they weren't great tonight. Keyshawn Hall just went nuts. He's a really good player. He's a bucket. I had an NBA scout here sitting next to me who was like, man, I'm disappointed I didn't get eyes on this guy earlier. He was mad that Central Florida didn't win, so he could see more of him. But I just think Kansas did, while they did enough to win, the Jayhawks, I wrote about it this past weekend, like they need Hunter Dickinson to play really, really well. And for the first half of this game, he didn't really do much. He had too many turnovers. They just don't get anything from their guards in terms of their guards being able to break people down off the dribble and get to the basket. And so like you saw down the stretch of that game, it's so hard for them to generate stuff offensively. Last possession of regulation, like what the hell was that? I don't know. But it was like nobody really wanted the ball. But I'll give this to Hunter. Like he stepped up and hit a big three in overtime, and that gave him a little bit of separation. And then Central Florida was just kind of did some things that losing teams do. And this wasn't the best out of Kansas, but hey, you survive in advance, and we'll see what they have tomorrow.
We got to talk about that play at the end of regulation, though. Like it's Bill Self, the brilliant tactician, the brilliant ATO mind, the guy that's always going to scheme up something good, and we get a mid-post ISO from KJ Adams. Like, what was that? Was that a mistake? Did they run the wrong thing? They just had no. Like, how do we end up with that?
I need to go back and watch it. Like I got to watch the tape, like a coach would say, right? But like I imagine
too many coaches, CJ.
Yeah, I imagine they were trying to get it to DeJuan and run something, and then it ended up with KJ, and it was like, okay, face up, whatever. That couldn't have been the first option. And if I had enough time, if I didn't have to get on with you jokers, I would have gone and asked Bill. But here we are. Don't tell my actual bosses. But anyway, I mean, that couldn't have been the play. But still, like, you got to have backup plans, right? And like that's this team where there aren't just enough guys that you can just give the ball to and go make a play when something breaks down. And I think that's been kind of an issue all year. Like I said earlier, they don't have a guard that you can just give it to and get to the bucket. And I think that's kind of been an issue all year, and that play was kind of symbolic of it. Like they weren't guarding DeJuan Harris all night. They weren't really guarding KJ in different spots. That's what Kansas has kind of become used to. But let's be honest, they still scored 98 points. Like, their defense wasn't that great tonight. But get Central Florida some credit. They did shoot the ball really well.
All right, so first game of the day for you, Iowa State won by 20 over Cincinnati. Ho-hum to some degree, but they got Keyshawn Gilbert back. He played 10 minutes. He looked atrocious in those 10 minutes. Doesn't look like himself. He's got that groin injury. Where's your confidence level right now? Because mine is not high, and I loved this team early in the year when they were healthy. I thought they could be a Final Four team. Do you think they could even be a second weekend team right now, watching them?
Because of their defense, they got a shot to get there, but I don't know that I'll pick it. Like, I think Gilbert is just he's a shell of himself. He's not the same. I mean, they're rolling with who they're rolling with at this point. I think they're just going to try to win like a couple of years ago, Iowa State, where you just kind of win with defense and you try to manufacture whatever you can offensively, but they're nowhere near close to what they were in November, December, and it's kind of a bummer. It sucks.
I was going to say it's sad.
They were really good early. Yes. They were really good early, and they're just not even close to that. So I think they could defend their way to the second weekend, but I don't see them going much further than that.
West Virginia, they were a team in our most recent bracket. They were a 10 seed. And they're in a position where they're probably safe coming out of a loss to Colorado, but you pick up another quad 2 loss, and they're sitting here now. Hold on, let me make sure I have it right here in front of me. They are 19-13 overall, 46 in net, 53 in KenPom, which is like borderline, good enough, but borderline. 6-1 against 6-10 against quad 1 opponents. Gonzaga on a neutral, Arizona on a neutral. They beat Iowa State. They won at Kansas, which is a big one. They don't really have a bad, like, this is probably their worst loss of the season, but they are 12-13 against teams that are not quad 4. And if you listen to our bracketologist, CJ, they kind of say this looks like a Seton Hall team from last year that didn't get into the NCAA tournament. How concerned is Darren DeVries at this point?
I think it's not going to be a fun week or a few days, not week, but a few days waiting for that bracket to come out. I think that, the bigger concern for them is like, how are they going to freaking win a game in the NCAA tournament once they get there? If they do get there, because they're really having a hard time scoring the ball. He's done an amazing job to just get them in this position, because they don't have the talent of an NCAA tournament team to me. And they just kind of snuck out some good wins early. And like you said, they do take care of business usually against the bottom half of the league. And that's what was maybe surprising about today. And I'll be honest, like, I had a work Zoom midway through the second half. I step out for about maybe 10, 15 minutes to talk about the transfer portal. And I come back in and they're losing. But even before that, it didn't feel like they could never get separation, because they just can't score the ball very, very easily. Like, it's all Javon Small, and there's just too much on his plate. And coaches in the league have told me, like, they think he's worn down as the year's gone on. He was so good early.
He looks like
but
it.
There's just been so much asked of him that I just think it's a lot, and he's worn down.
All right, the final game that you saw tonight, Baylor beats Kansas State. Scott Drew beats his former assistant coach, Jerome Tang. And I don't know, I feel like this Baylor team tonight looked as close as the Baylor team that we were hoping to see all year, right? Norchad was Norchad. VJ Edgecombe was terrific tonight. Jaden Nunn was good. And the point guard duo. He was really good. Yeah, the point guard duo was fine. They weren't great, but Rob Wright and Jeremy Roach were solid if you kind of combine what they did tonight. So, I don't know. Was this just a win over Kansas State that you look at and you say, hey, ho-hum, I don't really take any stock in this thing? Or do you think that maybe this Baylor team's healthy enough that they can do a little bit of damage?
I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I think it was the best they've looked in a long time. And Nunn playing well, like, that was a big development for them, because, like, he was really freaking good in that game. But I also think K-State looked like a team that was just kind of checked out. And So you can't take too much from it just because like Jerome Tang said afterwards that, if they got an invite to the crown, he doesn't think they'll play. So like to me that just kind of tells you like this they're just ready to move on to the off season. They're done. It was going to take a miracle for them to do anything. So, but you do have to give Baylor credit. Like they had some pop tonight, and so that was promising for them. But I thought it was the best they've looked in a while.
Did you see the video of Coleman Hawkins in the locker room after the loss, breaking down?
I have not. No.
Yeah, he was full. Yeah, like
wow.
sobbing, like saying it was his fault and he felt guilty, and it looked a lot like the pressure of having this contract and being the guy known as the highest paid NIL guy in college basketball and the expectations that come with that, and then not quite living up to it, and the criticism and the kind of the hate that he got. It seemed very evident after or during the season that was weighing on him. I just didn't realize how much, man. Like he was that was a hard thing to watch, and I would actually recommend anybody listening to this seek it out, go find it, watch it, because I think it's worthwhile thinking about. Just next time you decide you want to be mean to somebody on social media. But what do you make of the Coleman Hawkins experience at Kansas State, CJ?
I don't put a ton of the blame on him because I think that we've seen he can be good on the right rosters, right? Like at Illinois, he was good on the right rosters. He's not a star. He's more of a glue, kind of piece it together, a connector type dude. And like he's a really good passer. He can do some things defensively. I just don't think he was the guy that you can put in a starring role. And where it was a poorly constructed team in that, McDaniel was not very consistent and he had to be a star. And their wings kind of came along at the end, but it took a little while. And then, you put so much money in the center position, and really Coleman was the only one that did anything out of the guys that you brought in at that center position. So I just think like, I'm sure Jerome Tang's going to look back on this and think like, I've got there's some lessons to be learned from this, and I've got to be better about how I put these rosters together, and they get a hit reset, and we'll see what they do next year.
Last thing I got for you, then you can go. You can leave us here all alone at the ACC and SEC tournaments. BYU, they've won 8 in a row. They've won 10 of their last 12. What, in your mind, what has turned this? What has flipped this? What has taken them from being a team where it was like, yeah, they got a lottery pick, but I just don't know if they're really all that good, to like, is this a second weekend team? Is this like a top 20 team in the country?
Yeah,
maybe.
No, I mean, I think he's figured out kind of how to coach in college basketball, for one. Like it took a little while to just get used to everything that goes into it. But I really like their talent, and offensively, like if you just kind of let them play a free-flowing game, they're one of the best offensive teams in the country. They've really figured out how to play in their, his pick and roll system, and both the point guards, when Yegor isn't on, they just throw in Dallin Halls, who's might be one of the best, probably the best backup point guard in the country. Like he's a starter level guy. They got rim rolling bigs. Like everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And then defensively, they've gotten a little bit better and guarded better. And their bigs really rebound. They can be rim protectors. Like everybody's just kind of fallen in line to their spots. Everybody's gotten better in their role. And it's been a fun team to watch these last couple of weeks. Like I'm really excited for that game against Iowa State tomorrow. Like we got a classic a few weeks ago. Like that could be the best game of the day.
Yeah, well, I was going to end this by saying, what is the game that you're looking forward to the most? But I think it's quite obviously Iowa State BYU. That might be the best game in the entire world of college basketball tomorrow. Listen, CJ, we appreciate you being here. Jeff was able to catch up with a guy that punched a ticket tonight. Will Wade is heading back to the NCAA Tournament McNeese State champions of the Southland. Here is Jeff's sit down with Will Wade.
All right, now pleased to be joined by none other than McNeese State head coach Will Wade. of the two-time Southland champions. You've now swept the regular season and the tournament for 2 straight years. I'm not surprised, Will. I got to say, I'm not surprised here at all. But what did it feel like tonight to do it again and lead from wire to wire tonight?
I'm glad you're not surprised because I was. I knew we'd be good, but I'd be lying if I knew it would go this well. I knew it would go well, but I mean, I'd be lying if I thought it would go this well. But look, Lamar's a good team. They've played us as well as anybody in the league the last couple years. We just beat them at their place by 2 last Saturday. They're physical. They're built different than a lot of teams in our league. They have a really good big kid, Adam Hamilton. And they've got some good big 4-man. They have some size. Most teams in our league are small like we are. And so they're very physical. Alvin Brooks does a great job. He was at Houston with Coach Sampson. I mean, they just do a really, really good job. So we knew it was going to be, a rock fight, kind of first one to 60, wins these type games. And fortunately, we were able to crank out enough offense, and our defense was really, really good, particularly in the second half. We had really good communication. We forced the shots that we wanted. We didn't rebound as well as we needed to, but we were able to get it done.
All right. So the big question, and you told me this, we had you were eating Chislik over there in South Dakota to start the season.
We've gotten a little bit better since then. I was a little worried.
I know you were. No, I know you were worried because we were sitting in the coach's room afterwards, and you were like, I don't know if we're good, because you put this team together differently than a year ago. You put this team together with the hope of winning an NCAA tournament game, which McNeese State has never done in its history. Do you feel any more confident than you did that night that you can win a tournament game now?
I'm a lot more confident than I was that night because I didn't know if we were going to get to the damn tournament that night.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, our team, I give our guys a lot of credit. We've grown throughout the year. We were not very good early in the year, and we had the 21st toughest non-conference schedule. We played at Alabama. We played Mississippi State on a neutral court in Tupelo. Played Santa Clara, Liberty. We played a lot of really, really good teams. And, we were 6-5 in the non-conference. We were 5-5 at one point, and then we've ripped off like 22 out of 23 or something like that. But our team has grown and gotten better. It just took us a little while longer. Last year's team just hit the ground running, and it was a little bit easier. This year's team, it just took us a little bit more time. But I do think that we've got a good group. Our guys are playing well together. Our guys are having fun. We've got the rhythm and chemistry, how we need it right now. And so, we'll see what happens in March. I've been doing this long enough. It's all about the matchups. I mean, everybody's like, "What seed are you going to get?"
So what do you need to see?
I don't really care what.
Will, what if I said to you?
Yeah. So
what you need?
look.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look. We need a team that has one or two of these characteristics. One, they're not huge inside and play through their bigs.
Yeah.
And two, we need a team that is a little bit shaky at the guard spot and will turn it over. Our defense is predicated. We get a ton of turnovers. We're top 20 in the country in steals, turnovers, force, that sort of thing. And look, we have pretty good positional size. We've got Brandon Murray, who came from the SEC on the wing. We got Quadir Copeland, who came from the ACC at point guard, 6'6" point guard. But in our league, outside of Lamar and Southeastern, I mean, you got to have 6'7", 6'8" athletic bigs. So we're just not huge on the front line because our number one thing is we got to win our league. I mean, none of this, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't be talking to you if we couldn't win our league, right? So we've got a banger from Arizona State, Bryant Selabonge, who's been good for us. But we've got to find a team that has, I mean, preferably a team that has both of those characteristics. They're not huge and their guards, turn the ball over. Basically the opposite of Gonzaga. Our team who we played last year, they were huge and they had 2 point guards on the court at all times and they never turned the ball over. So, that we got to have basically the opposite of that. A team that had one or both of those characteristics would be ideal for us. Now, who the hell is that team? I don't really know. I haven't watched a ton of, I've watched other games, but I haven't looked statistically. My assistant will probably start looking at that tomorrow and give me a list of, hey, these are the teams we probably prefer to see, and these are the ones we wouldn't prefer to see.
Jeff, here's the one thing I want to ask you about Will Wade. Okay. NC State was the school that got all the buzz, and sitting here in the state of North Carolina, it doesn't sound like Will Wade to NC State is something that is all that likely to happen. This dude can coach his ass off. Where's the right fit for him at the high major level? Where can he go get hired right now?
NC State. NC State, they should hire him. Like, if you're Boo Corrigan, you hire Will Wade. And I'm not sure he's out of the equation yet either. Let's see how this thing plays out at this point, because I think the fan base desperately wants Will Wade. And Boo Corrigan's a little buttoned up. I'm not sure Will Wade is his cup of tea, but we'll see where he goes, because sometimes
buttoned up is not the way that is not something I would use to describe Will Wade.
Sometimes, Robert, the ADs aren't the ones making the decisions these days. Sometimes it's the people. Yeah, exactly. You're one step ahead of me with that one. It's the big money people. So we'll see how this thing plays out. Here's what I will say. If he doesn't get NC State, and we cut that interview, we'll run the full version on YouTube later. But my last question to him was about the job situation. And he said, I'm happy at McNeese. I'm not going to take something to take it. I'm going to make sure I take a job that I think I can win a national title. He's not going to go to Texas when Texas opens, not if Texas opens. When Texas opens, Chris Del Conte's not going to hire Will Wade in all likelihood. So he might have to wait another cycle. The job that I think he would crush it at, he won't take it. But imagine Will Wade if UNLV opens. Imagine Will Wade in Vegas. Again, not a good enough job that he takes, I don't think, because they can't pay enough. And the league, obviously, isn't what it's been. But, man, imagine Will Wade in Las Vegas.
He would clean up. The Cowboys were the 13th automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Currently, Montana, as we film this, is up 61-50 on Northern Colorado in the Big Sky Championship game. So you see it right there. 13 teams are currently automatically qualified for the NCAA tournament, and every single team on the bubble breathed a sigh of relief when Gonzaga clinched their bid. Coming up next, John Fanta. As teams are fighting to get off the bubble and into the field of 68, I got a beverage for you that's been off the bubble since day one. Dad Water. No bubbles, no fizz, just a smooth, refreshing canned cocktail unlike anything else on the market today. If you're tired of the same old beers and seltzers on game day, crack open something different. Dad Water is made with tequila, water, and natural flavors. Nothing artificial, no BS. It's 100 calories, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, so if you're on a diet like me, you're good to go. Dad Water is also an Indiana brand. College Hoops is in its DNA, and they want you to enjoy a great lineup of products all tournament long. Dad Water is the ultimate game time drink with no bubbles. It just drinks like water. Clean, smooth, refreshing, and without those burps. So take it from me, this is the easiest drinking adult beverage I've ever had. Dad Water is now available at Target, Total Wine and Liquor, and Meijer, as well as your favorite local liquor stores. Or you can order online at drinkdadwater.com. Dad Water, tequila, water, natural flavor. John Fanta live from the Big East Tournament, Madison Square Garden, joining myself, Rob Dauster, and Jeff Goodman, closing up the Field of 68 after dark here on a Wednesday night. And Fanta, before we talk about your bowl throwing skills and your ability to work with Red Panda, the superstar that she is, I want to ask you. I want to start this off. I think the biggest story from the first day of the Big East Tournament was Providence losing, and Kim English on the podium afterwards. This is a direct quote. "It was a disappointing outcome, but we played true to the pitiful, embarrassing season that we had. You were there, boots on the ground. You know the Big East better than anyone. What do you make of that quote from Kimmy English?
So I'll give a nice tease here and say, at least in the building, it was not the biggest story in terms of vibe. We'll get to that in a moment, a little tease. But it certainly is a takeaway nationally here that through 2 years of the Kim English era, that Providence just came off a disastrous season. This was a really brutal year for the Friars. And, of course, losing Bryce Hopkins for the year is at the forefront of it. And now what's next for Hopkins is what weighs on everything when you begin to talk about Providence and their future. But for English to sit down and say that, he's the head coach. He's the one who put this roster together. If you guys remember, he put it together relatively quickly and identified his needs, or what he said were his needs, with Wesley Cardette, Bensley Joseph, Abdur Rahim. Like they didn't waste any time. Bensley Joseph. That for him to sit down and say that definitely struck the room, because he really unleashed and said that his season was pitiful. And I thought that the effort was poor. It was clear that Pierre Brooks and Jameel Telfort and Patrick McCaffrey were more invested in this game. And I do think that the news of Thad Matta, coming back next year, the recruiting class they have coming in, there's a lot of good juju around Butler. And they fought and they made shots, but they wanted it more than Providence. And that's not Providence basketball. It's not what Ed Cooley had built. And we can get to Ed Cooley because, frankly, his first 2 seasons have been disappointing. This was a step in the right direction this year, but they really no-showed for a better portion of their game tonight. But for Providence College, Jeff, to have this type of performance against a Butler team that, has a couple of talented players, I just thought Providence, I expected more club. And at the end, when you're the head coach and you had the NIL, you went out and identified these players, and then you sit down. And again, he sits down and says, we played true to the pitiful, embarrassing season that we had. I mean, he did take ownership, but that's an alarming quote for him. And I think for Kim, this is a massive offseason, because next year he's got to win.
This was the worst season they've had since the Keno Davis era. Okay, that's putting it in perspective, because the Keno Davis era lasted 3 seasons. If Kim English doesn't get this thing fixed next year, the Kim English era will last 3 seasons. They got to play harder, because that's what Providence fans want. You said that, Fanta, and I've been in that area enough over the years. They want to go to a game and know that that team is going to play their asses off at the end of the day. And, yeah, they're without Bryce Hopkins, their best player. But ultimately, that's no excuse for not playing hard and not playing harder than everybody else, because, again, this Big East is not overwhelming. You should be able to beat Butler. You should be able to beat the Georgetowns and certainly the Seton Halls and some of these other teams down the bottom of the league this year that even the top of the league, other than St. John's, isn't elite. They're not unbeatable. And this Providence team has been embarrassing this year. And it's going to be interesting to see, does this fan base, which is rabid, do they turn on Kim English early next season if he doesn't put together a team that, number one, plays hard, and number 2, wins games in the non-conference?
Got anything, John?
Jeff just summed it up, and I think when I look at their team, to me the biggest thing was this: they went out and they identified who they wanted. And Rob and Jeff, you remember, like they were cleaning up in the portal early. It was like, they got Joseph, they got Cardette. They had a list. The list they marked up, they brought in. Credit to them. A lot of people were crediting him for that in that moment. But this is also why I would caution people in this next offseason. Don't just look at instant ads for anybody. This is in general, guys. The Coleman Hawkins thing comes to mind. Like, we get so caught up in like 1 or 2 ads for a program, and we're like, they're set. They're good. Home runs, home run ads, slam dunk ads. It's easy to get caught up. It's easy to get caught up in it, but it's not everything. So I think that for Kim, he went out and got what he thought was going to be shooting. Like, they're all about three-point shooting. They don't have enough three-point shooters. They were playing a style that fit the personnel they had. And they didn't have a big man. They did not have – Kreese to Sandico did not pan out.
Nope. They did not.
Nope. All right, real quick, Goodman, I'll go to you first. Fan, I want your take on it as well. Second season of the Ed Cooley era has come to an end. Georgetown 17-15 overall, 8-12 in the Big East, out in the first round of the Big East tournament. Where do you stand on Ed Cooley? You got a minute, Goodman.
Yeah, I mean, he made progress, but they're not as far along as I thought they would be, and I'm sure Ed Cooley thought they'd be after year two. Year two, I'm sure he was hoping NCAA tournament, and now it's the crown. And the question is, can he retain the key pieces? He's got money. Can he get Thomas Sorber back and then add the right pieces? Malik Mack is not the answer as a starting point guard to me for an NCAA tournament team that could maybe make some noise. So he's got some work to do. They're a step behind what I thought they'd be.
Fanta?
They are a step behind. Totally a step behind. And, you shouldn't have one injury totally derail your season. Let's face it. With Thomas Sorber, they were a top 30 defensive team. Without him, they were a bottom 30 in the country. They couldn't defend tonight. And DePaul took them out back in 3 games. It's a 3-game sweep by DePaul. DePaul hadn't swept a team in 3 games in a season since they were in Conference USA. They've been in the Big East for 2 decades. The story, though, guys, tonight, I'm telling you from this building, I agree with everything Jeff said. And I think for Georgetown, you got to win year 3. But I'm telling you guys right now what the vibe was inside this building. The vibe was Chris Holtman knows what the hell he's doing. Like, DePaul got lucky being able to hire him. They came out tonight. They were up 27-12 on the gates. The ball was popping. Georgetown's defense had little to no answer. They had 17 assists on 25 makes. N.J. Benson, he had a torn ligament in his hand that sidelined him for the last 6 games. He plays tonight. And this is a guy who's a transfer from Missouri State. Chris Holtman said, we looked at his analytics. We thought they checked out. 18 on 7 of 8. And I'll tell you what, they got a gem in Layden Blocker. I love Connor Emright, but his injury has allowed Blocker to not look over his shoulder. The Arkansas transfer was phenomenal tonight. He had 18 and 6 assists. Good win for DePaul. You can now say year 1 of the Chris Holtman era was a success. They have 5 league wins. They had 0 last year. 0.
And they've won 3 in a row. They're ended on a high note. It's nice to see them get a little momentum going. And shout out to Field of 68 alum Laval Jordan, who was on that staff as general manager. Best dressed man in the Big East. Go ahead, Fanta.
Quick thing here, because I know we're getting out. I want to say to Eric Dixon, something to watch, college hoops fans. He enters tonight's game against UConn, a game that I think will be really good, Jeff, because they're fighting for their lives. Eric is now 17 points shy of breaking Kerry Kittle's all-time Villanova scoring record. If he gets 17, he becomes – so that's an added dimension. Hurley versus Neptune.
What's the game what's the game you're most excited to see? You got 2 seconds tomorrow.
Xavier Marquette, man. Xavier Marquette in every way. I think it's going to be an all-out battle.
Goodman, what's excited about?
Entire SEC. All the SEC games.
There you go. Wake UNC, Field of 68 after dark. Now is your chance to prove you're smarter than the Field of 68. We're hosting a Survivor contest with our partner Splash Sports. There's a $25 entry fee, a 25 entry max in the contest, and more than 1,700 spots available, which means there's a $40,000 max prize for the winner. Survivor is the future of March Madness. Each day you pick a team to win. If they win, you advance. We'll also be running a free-to-enter bracket contest as well as a second chance Survivor in the Sweet 16. So prove you know more ball than the Field of 68 on Splash Sports. I want my home to feel like my home. So whether I'm looking for big furniture, just a small piece for my place, or maybe some storage solutions for the basement or the garage, the answer is Wayfair. Seriously, I needed a new patio set and fire pit for my backyard. I bought it on Wayfair. It looks great on our deck, and it gives me an excuse to fire up the smoker, invite some friends over, crack a couple beers. Just last week, I bought a new chair for my office, someplace comfortable to sit while the madness takes up the 4 screens in front of me. I got it on Wayfair, clicked a few buttons. A couple days later, it showed up at my front door. They even offered to help set it up for you. Digging through online stores can be intimidating. Trust me, I know. It can be hard to find what you're looking for in your price range, but not on Wayfair. They have great options, even if you are balling on a budget like me. Wayfair has every style for every home, including mine and yours. So head to wayfair.com and shop everything home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We're live. It's the afters.
Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28.
Well, welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live. It is the Afters. Rob Dauster here in Charlotte for the ACC tournament. Jeff Goodman is in Nashville for the SEC tournament. That is John Fanta. He's in the city that never sleeps. He is in the Mecca. He is in Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament. It is time for the Afters. Dagan Hughes, do you have any questions from the chat that you would like us to answer?
Not yet. So chat, get your questions in.
All right, I got a question, Fanta. I got a question.
Yeah.
Xavier.
Yeah.
Win, and you're in, right? Is
Say so.
Xavier a win a game in the tournament kind of a team if they get there? Because I feel like with the way that they're playing, they are not somebody that I would want to see on the 11 seed if I was a 6.
They're a Sweet 16 team if they get in. They could be
Could
that
be.
type of team.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. There's a difference between what that team would be and what we would say just a one and done. But they're playing really well. Over the last month, if you look at the metrics, they've been like a top 15 team. They've been hovering right around there. And they got a Q2 win, upgrading to a quad 1 win at home against UConn. That became a quad 1 win last night when UConn went up to the top 30 in the rankings. But let's talk about this Xavier Marquette game. This is a mammoth game. The Garden is sold out. The rest of this tournament.
It's going to be awesome.
It was good tonight. They had like 17-5 in here for Georgetown and DePaul. It was rocking in here. It's just become that type of thing where I think the people in this league now, because it's so basketball driven, they just map out their calendars and they're in the building regardless. That's what it felt like tonight.
Fanta, not to cut you off, that's what it was for me growing up, right? That every single fan base, and it's like that now, and it's picked up a little bit now that they've kind of reset the league and you know, it's the different teams in the new iteration of the Big East. But the thing that's so beautiful about it is every fan base like has their bar. They have their hotel that they go to. They have their place where they go to eat before the games. They have their place where they go to drink after the games. Like, it is a tradition for families and for friends and for groups of people to go to New York and stay in these places. Like, that's why I will never be able to comprehend the conference tournament as anything other than what the Big East tournament is, because it's just viewed differently by the fans, by the players, by the people, by the teams, by everybody involved in the league. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I think that this is fascinating. I want to get Jeff's thoughts on this. You're talking about a Xavier team that comes in having won 7 in a row, 12 of their last 15. Ryan Conwell's had 20-plus in the last 4 games. This guy is cooking and has the makeup of a guard who by the end of the week we could be talking about if Xavier makes that type of a run. You look at the bracket, they've beaten Marquette, and really they could have beaten Marquette twice. Remember the no foul call in Cincinnati that ended that game. It's been a tough matchup for Marquette because in the second meeting in Milwaukee, Xavier, they turned Marquette over. They score Marquette defensively. For me, for Marquette, the key to this game and the key for Marquette is the same, Jeff. Like Cam Jones, it can't all be on him. Ben Gold, David Joplin, Chase Ross, you've got to be able to supply some contributions in this game because right now, Conwell and Fremantle, Jeff, are locked in. And Dante Maddox is making enough shots. Jerome Hunter's giving them a burst. Sean Miller's found something. For Marquette, we saw them a couple weeks back, and there just wasn't enough complementary scoring happening. I am fascinated to see because if you look at it with Marquette, they have shown up the last 2 years to this tournament, either going well or not going great. And keep in mind, they've made the championship game of this the last 2 years.
Yeah, I've lost my swagger with Marquette. And it's, again, what I said in the preseason and in the beginning of the season, even when Cam Jones was going bananas. Like, they're complementary pieces. I just didn't think were quite good enough, right? He needed a Robin. He was the Robin last year, to Tyler Kolek. He needed a guy like that, and he doesn't have it. Now, Sean Miller's got a bunch of good players. And again, I think that's the benefit of this Xavier team is they're coming on in the second half of the season because now they've got enough depth to play with. They've got a lot of guards, and Fremantle's playing with kind of a new lease on life because there was a moment earlier this season he thought his career was done. They thought his career was done when he went down with the injury. So, yeah, I'd like to see this Xavier team get in, not just because Sean was with us and After Dark, but that's a program that, frankly, has not had the success over the last half dozen years that they are accustomed to. And those fans, as you know, they're going to be out tomorrow. They're going to be out, and that's going to be a fun game with a great atmosphere at the Garden.
Dagan Hughes, questions for us.
All right, fellas. I have one that I keep seeing come in the chat over and over and over again. And I'm not really sure where it's coming from. But people want to know, can Georgia Tech pull the upset tomorrow against Duke?
Oh, boy.
So I'll answer that one. I actually think that Georgia Tech is constructed in the way that you need to be constructed to have a chance to beat Duke. They have a really good ball screen point guard that can attack those switches. They have size and positional size. Bayandongo is big. Duncan Powell is a friggin' monster. I had no idea how good he was until I sat here in person and watched him play. Like, that dude can go. But it ends up just being like a talent disadvantage thing where Duke, you said it before, Jeff, they're robots. They are so connected. They're driven. They're on a mission. I don't know how anybody here is going to be able to beat them.
Deep, Rob. They're deep enough.
Yes. So I think Georgia Tech is constructed the way that you need to be constructed to beat Duke. And if Duncan Powell and Nathan George both end up going nuts, then sure, they got a chance, right? Like, anything can happen. But I think this is another situation where you got to hope for food poisoning for half the team to really have a chance to be able to win this game. That's about all you got. Dagan, next question, please.
Bram wants to know one team that will steal a bid or can steal a bid.
Ooh,
obviously,
that's a good question.
Knocking some teams
I'm
off.
going to go with I'll go with one. So I think George Mason. Why not? Why not the Patriots? And if it's not them, it's going to be somebody else from the Atlantic 10. I mean, but then again, VCU's not going to get in, or may get in, may not get in. They're right on that cut line. So that's a curious question there because I look at it, guys, from the standpoint of, like, Drake took care of their job, right? The WCC, that was Gonzaga. We thought maybe there could be an A-10, but, like, I don't know. It's also, we're at a point now where, you know what? Colorado State, right? Colorado State can steal a bid because they're not in the tournament. I'm going to go with Colorado State. I think Nick Clifford, Jeff, and the Rams. I'm going to call my shot, and I'm going to take Colorado State to win the Mountain West. They've played great ball.
Yeah, that's the one right there. That's the
I'm
one.
going North Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, I just think, again, I'd like to, take the whole league against Memphis because you only have one team there, right? You only have one team in Memphis. But I'll go North Texas. They were the second best team in the league all year. Memphis did lose a couple games in the AAC. So, and North Texas fought them till the end. I think they only played once this year. I'm not sure, but I know it's close. I know it's a close game, and they got good guards. Ross Hodges, some good guards. The kid Aiden Wright is talented.
I will just say UC San Diego and UC Irvine playing in the Big West Championship game, double OT thriller. I want to see both those teams in the NCAA tournament.
I think that's fair, and it should happen. Those two teams, man, it's been unbelievable what they've done.
Let's do two more here. Cade wants to know: does Indiana need to win tomorrow to feel good about making the field? Currently,
they'd feel better if they won. They'd feel better if they won, but I think they can survive a loss. Oregon's a 4 seed.
Yeah, I think Indiana's in no matter what. but they could easily be sent to Dayton if they lose to Oregon, and that's probably not what you want. If you remember last time they played in the first four, won the game, then got sent out west and got absolutely spanked by Randy Bennett and St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Last
think
question.
it's
Or sorry, go ahead, Fanta.
I do love this time of year, right? You know, they'd feel better if they won. Well, sure, of course.
Yes,
I mean, you're
everybody
right,
would.
Rob. I'm not like making fun of Rob here. I'm not.
No, you're making fun. I'm used to it. I get made fun of by Goodman all the time.
No, we're not in person yet, where I can like watch Jeff's face as you're going through stuff. And no, it's not that. You know what's interesting? I'm just throwing out the hypothetical. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. But Texas has A&M now, Jeff. I think A&M. I know, but is there a world? Look, I'm saying if it were to happen,
sure.
If it were to happen, then sure. If
I mean, if
Ohio
they win tomorrow, if they beat Texas A&M, then I think they're playing Tennessee with a bid on the line. I think then it becomes pressure, all of it, and I hope Trey Johnson can go. Like I would love nothing more tomorrow than to see a Trey Johnson, Wade Taylor, mano-a-mano going back and forth, and both of them putting 40 up. That would be awesome.
That'd be fun.
So that's going to be a fun crowd, right? Be a fun crowd for A&M. Wait a minute.
The crowd was awesome today. I was shocked, guys, at the SEC. You know, on the first day, we know, okay, it's a great league this year, but I didn't know if they would show up because it's still about football, right? Now, it was great. Vandy played. Unfortunately, Vandy didn't really play today. They didn't really show up today. But the fans came out to support them. I mean, they were not good. Yeah, they were not good. But they're not – listen, what Byington's done this year is remarkable with that group. To get them in, which I think they're going to end up getting in anyway, I hope they are, was a hell of a coaching job by Mark Byington. And I was talking to him and Darius Garland, the whole Cleveland, not all of them, but most of the Cleveland Cavs were there. And, Garland was there. Tristan Thompson was cheering on his Texas Longhorns. And I hadn't spent much time with Darius Garland. Remember, he played 5 games with Vandy. The year they went 0-for, he got hurt 5 games in. They went 0-for under Bryce Drew, and it ended up costing Bryce Drew his job. But Darius Garland, what a phenomenal kid, guy, whatever you want to call him, to talk to. He was awesome today.
Hey, who's the Cavaliers
Last question.
GM?
Yeah, Kobe Altman. Their whole team. I mean, honestly, I was talking to Kenny Atkinson. I'd never met him, and I'm getting on a tangent here. I'm sorry, Rob, but talking to Kenny Atkinson because I know Fan is a Cavs fan. Never met him.
They're so well.
He was saying what the biggest takeaway, and I knew this kind of beforehand, but the biggest takeaway was how great these guys are to coach, from Evan Mobley to Donovan Mitchell to Ty Jerome to Sam Merrill to everybody in this team, like the character and the talent. It's amazing what they've done. And Kenny Atkinson, I think, learned a lot being with Steve Kerr. Anyway, sorry, Rob.
Think about this. The 2 biggest signings. Sorry, we're talking NBA for a minute. The two big extensions in Cleveland Cavs history are LeBron James and Donovan Mitchell. Nobody stays in Cleveland. A lot of people joke about why would they stay in Cleveland. The Chuckster. I don't know if I can talk with Barkley someday. He's just going to bury me if I ever say to him I'm from Cleveland. It's not going to. By the way, what the frick? I'm sorry. Our bracket people have Ohio State still in after that?
No, so it was before the loss, before the game. So the bracket was released before the games. So they would be out now. They would be out now.
We can wake Arkansas.
Yeah, they would be out now. But our Dagan Hughes just he can't be bothered to make 3 different brackets in a day. I've tried. I've tried to get him.
I got a show to produce around here, people.
Dagan's very hard.
He is. Last question, Dagan.
Yes, you said this might be the game of the day in all of the conference tournaments, so get it quick because we talked some Cavs stuff, so we'll get you out of here, Rob. Don't worry. BYU or Iowa State tomorrow?
BYU. Cougs, baby.
I agree. I agree. And I'm the biggest Iowa State guy. I just don't think – I don't have the confidence in him. I think they're – as CJ Moore said earlier, Keyshawn Gilbert, man, he's lost whatever he had mentally and physically. It is gonzo right now. And when they were great, Keyshawn Gilbert was their best offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State goes back to their defensive roots and does enough because they could still win with Keyshawn Gilbert being in a rut because Taman Lipsey's still a leader. And Deshaun Jackson gave him 10 and 15 in the win over Cincinnati. I think Joshua Jefferson and Momcilovic have a big day. And as much as I like BYU in the season they've had, different monster in the conference tournament just is. Like, Jeff, you saw Vanderbilt just have a no-show. Conference tourney results, like, don't equivocate what you – a lot of fans, they watch a team once in the conference tournament, and they're like, they stink. I'm out on them for the tournament.
Right.
Equivocate. Someone's been using their word of the day, toilet paper.
Just end the show. I don't really want to go down there.
Toast of the night. Toast of the night.
I don't
Fanta.
Okay.
Fanta, you go.
Toast of the night, Fanta. You lead it off.
Ooh, wow.
I got two ready to go. So while you think about it, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Don't
so
steal mine, Rob. Don't do it.
My first one is going out to Toby Lawal from Virginia Tech, who last night said he was asked how the season went. He said they thought we were going to be ass. I mean, we were still ass, but we weren't that bad, which is the greatest quote I've ever heard. Ever.
God.
So shout out to Toby Lawal. My other one is going out to Maxime Reynaud, who had 23 points, 8 boards, a couple blocks, a couple of assists, had a game-saving block on his former teammate Andrei Stojakovic over here. Peja, by the way, was in attendance watching this game. Andrei had 37. Maxime Reynaud, I did not realize, Goodman, that this dude, he was one of the best guests we've ever had on our preseason preseason media day stuff. This dude is like he runs his mouth. Like I was like he might be a little bit of no he's got a lot of shit to him. He made two game clinching free throws.
Using huge words.
Yes, probably. He's
does
probably
anybody know what he's trash talking?
Yeah, he's going up to the fans and he's saying you need to equivocate the score.
All right.
No, he was awesome. He made 2 game clinching free throws and started walking around like this to the Cal fans. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Go ahead.
All right. My toast, I'm going to go next. My toast is to Grambling, who pulled off the big upset over Southern as the 8 seed, knocking off the number 1 in the SWAC, Dante Jackson, their head coach. Really good coach, and that's a tough league. We know that. That's a tough league. But if you haven't seen it already, go watch the replay. Go watch it on Field of 68, the clip of that final possession. It was a complete shit show. Complete shit show.
Good toast. Good toast.
Go ahead.
I'm going to toast a couple of folks. I'm going to toast Matt Rogers, who went for 25 points and 8 rebounds in the American University Eagles. What a moment for them as they win the Patriot League championship. We've become conditioned to Bucknell and whatnot. Dwayne Simpkins, the head coach at American. What an awesome.
Love Dwayne.
They rolled past Navy. They didn't beat Navy. They beat them by 22. I want to give a toast to St. Francis. St. Francis, the Red Flash. Good for them to go in and beat Coach Sellers and Central Connecticut. I know it happened last night, but wow, that is really something. And I had one other that I wanted. I want to toast Chris Holtman because I think he's done a really nice job in year 1 at DePaul. And you know what, guys? They're playing on a Thursday night at the Garden. They gave DePaul some matchup problems because they spaced Creighton. Matchup problems because they spaced Creighton's defense out. I think they could hang in for a little while with Creighton. I think Kalkbrenner will be too much, but for DePaul, it's a step in the right direction. What's your other toast, Jeff?
I have one last toast. I have a toast to Dagan Hughes, to John Fanta, to all the Seton Hall fans. Your season is mercifully over. It's over.
Okay, so can I? I'm not just going to let you do that and then end the show. So Shaheen Holloway did sit down here tonight. He just sat down about an hour ago. He was very sad. And he said coaches this time of year have all different reactions in these press conferences. I'm going to say this about Shaheen. He wears on his sleeve. He sat down and he said, "This is on me." He said, I'm sorry. We will get this right. He said, look, we have to continue to build, but I can tell you guys, Seton Hall administration has now told me double-digit amount of times they have at least $4 million committed to their roster next year.
Ooh. How much of that is from you, Fanta? How much of the $4 million?
It's all from Bill Raftery. No, it's
nice.
It's from Dagan. No, honestly, it's Dagan Hughes. Like it is from Dagan Hughes.
Dagan Hughes.
It's funding this.
We pay him way too much money then.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Dagan Hughes is funding the roster. That's why they finished in last place in the Big East. There you go. That's
it's
what
not
happened.
That sounds more like it.
It'll be okay.
All right.
Why is nobody wait, Rob, why has nobody toasted to my camera shot, my shot tonight?
Because it's really not that good because you're in it.
What do you mean? It's elite.
I will just say
me?
we'll end it with this, Finn. I know you'll appreciate this one. Toast to John Paquette, the media director at the Big East in the Big East tournament for 35 years. This is his last one. He was the first guy that bought into the idea of the Field of 68 doing shows like this from the court. We did this 2022, the court at the Garden. Fanta, I know you'll remember this. Our equipment was so bad that we were literally passing the mics back and forth in the chairs because we kept getting feedback. We used more than one mic. So I would be sitting here back and forth, be like, "Oh, I got something to say. Give me the mic." It was me, you, and T.O. fighting over it, which I remember vividly. T.O. saying, "We're gonna laugh about this one day," and lo and behold, here we are. So shout out to John Paquette. Shout out to you, John Fanta. Shout out to Jeff Goodman for finally getting a good shot here. I'm so proud of him for finally learning how to use technology. To Dagan Hughes, to Trevor Valise, and to the great people here in Charlotte that have allowed me to overstay my welcome on the Field of 68 After Dark. We'll see you guys tomorrow again, midnight Eastern time.